Welcome back to another episode, and this one's all about brakes. Not breakages, that's next episode. And let me introduce you to a new vehicle. Well, it's not really a new vehicle, but it stops. It has brakes. So we're going to be putting it on the rollers in this video. Took a bit, as you'll see. We needed to change the brake pads and the rear discs. And I can tell you, driving around home, since having put the booster, the new pads and the rear discs in, it's a different car to drive. It pulls up with such little effort, and in doing so, it gears back quicker, which again helps it to slow down even more when it does come into the lower gears. Where I have had two really scary encounters is coming down the Araluen bends with the Jayco in tow and basically running out of brakes at the bottom of the hill. Now when I say running out of brakes, I mean starting to pull the handbrake up to slow down. And just recently, coming out of the Wattigans with Bullet Truck on the back, for those of you that know the hill coming out of the Wattigans, I ran out of brakes there too. Coming up to that T intersection, again pulling on the handbrake. So those two examples, I can't really tell you how the new booster's going to go in those situations. Whether it gets me to the maximum of the caliper and brake setup earlier, whether it lets me pull up earlier, that's something we're going to have to find out. Look, it's a mod I really remember enjoying on the grey car. We did the lines as well back then, the braided lines. With the newer models is you've got 8 lines to change. We've got the new pads and the new rear discs in. We bedded them in. We even went off-road. And I mean, coming down some of these hills that we came down.
Now just now, slow.
The brakes held. It was a really safe, confident feeling knowing I'm coming down off a ledge, knowing I'm going to be able to stop any forward momentum. 30,000 Ks, and we're changing a set of pads, front and rear. Now I'm okay with that. We've done a desert trip in that time, lots of towing. What's really encouraging to me is that the pads have worn evenly. They've both got to that same spot at the same time. So that's a first for me in a dual cab ute, that I'm not changing front pads before the rears, that they have worn out evenly like that. So I put it down to a couple of reasons, and we've got 1,500 kilos over the front diff and the same exactly over the rear. So it's beautifully weighted, this vehicle, evenly. So if we'd had a V8 in this, we'd have 100 or so kilos more on the front diff because of the motor. We've got the aluminium tray, so we're keeping the tail light as well. Secondly, no proportioning valve on this vehicle. Not having a proportioning valve and running it all through the ABS seems to be working, and working out the loads and what to give what brakes. Now the reason that you would normally go through pads at the front over the rear is it's just the way the vehicle stops. It's stopping nose down. If you put your foot on the brake, your nose down. It's also the reason too why you've got a bigger disc surface on the fronts of vehicles. They're bigger, with bigger pads, bigger calipers. The fronts are asked to work just that little bit harder. So we've got even brake wear, and now we've actually got a brake pedal that works. We're getting there. A couple of funny comments, there were some good ones actually, on how am I getting the same wear when we've always got wheels in the air. One guy even said, you know, you're trying to save pads by keeping wheels off the ground. Here we are, about to drive onto the rollers. Topping up the master cylinder here with the Penrite .3. Before we test, we'll do another bleed, make sure there's no air. Back in the same spot, but are we better?
We're so much better that that's just toe on the pedal in a relaxed way, and it's braking traction. It's pulling the wheels out of the roller, which is what should happen, right? The brake should be better than the traction you've got on the road.
Yep.
You should be able to lock it up, otherwise there's no point having ABS. It just feels so much better. It feels like
it's stopping.
The confidence you get when you lean into the brakes and the car stops.
Yeah.
You know, I think they're better numbers just with the toe into the pedal than we were getting before with like pulling the foot into the pedal as hard as you could. So we're not at the limit on the front where we were before. Last time we were hooking into it hard and pulling up. So
the fronts are better.
The front's heaps better.
Time for the rear.
It's not awful, but it's not what you want from a year-old car.
No.
Yeah, it says to me that the back's not holding real well. So this is the one we did 3 months ago, 4 months ago.
So double the kilometres.
5 and 5 kilonewtons on the front, and we've still got very much the same. That might well be at the limit of the brake itself, like the pads and the disc. But especially on the front there was much less pedal effort to get it to slip on the roller. So I reckon we must be at the capacity of the disc and the pads. So that's probably the next tree we need to bark up.
All right, we're barking. Do we want to push the adjuster down? Raining again, just like it was last week, working on the brakes. To see if we can get the brakes in the rear better than what they were on that test. We're lucky enough that we had a pair of brand new discs and pads. The adjuster bolt was all the way home and it still wouldn't just pull off like the other side. So that's your plan B. Always keep a couple of these bolts in your box, because if you have to do a bearing on the side of the road, you've got to get to this as well, because you've got to pull the hub off to change the back bearing and the racers. But you can see here we're pretty much down to very little. So similar to the YZ65 pads that I changed on Nicholas's bike last weekend. Handbrake shoes are like new. There's so much more meat on the new ones. This feels terrible. So we're going to replace them. Brand new ones, all genuine. This is where you got to pay attention to your like for like. Pick a pad and allocate it, right hand or left hand. The one with the bolts is the one with the piston. And you've got the piston groove in the backing plate. That's also the one that gets this. Very important. When you put these on, you're allocating a left and a right hand pad to go into the caliper. We've got to widen that gap now. So with a cold chisel, I like to just pry left to right to open up that gap. Open up the cap on your master cylinder to let the fluid levels come back up, because what you're doing by pushing that is you're pushing all the fluid through the lines back to the master cylinder. The one that you're trying to push back is the one that's on the piston side. So you lever off the other one. You can see it going in, creating the gap we need for the new disc. Brand new, look at that. So that's still quite loose because I can put it on and off quite easily. So we'll adjust a bit more. Just helps us so we're not doing it with a screwdriver at the end. The tighter you get it, the less clicks it takes on your handbrake. Like I say, I barely use the handbrake unless I'm on a hill or I've got the caravan on the back or the car trailer. Let's see if we've made enough clearance. You've got to make sure that we don't have brake fluid. So we've still got a fair bit before it comes out. You've got to make sure this doesn't overfill. Okay, so plenty of clearance. Finish off that handbrake adjustment now. The fronts are a little bit different and we're not going to be changing the disc, just the pads for now, to see if we can get the test a lot better. So the caliper doesn't even have to come off. You take the pins out. Man, they're hot. You'd hate to be doing this for a V8 supercar. So worn as far down as the rears were, really. So again, like for like, we are really going to have to open up that space by pushing those pistons back. This guy was working on stone this morning. Now we'll ask him to do some mechanic work. You just got to go bit by bit. If everything's in good condition, you haven't been driving in salt water or lots of mud, this is like 20 minutes aside. Ideally, it would have been good to change the disc because, yeah, that's pretty rubbish. The space has been made. Get it in there. So I'm pretty happy to say that they actually wore evenly front to back, which is a good sign. So we'll line them all back up, start getting these pins in. So I've had these where they've seized up and it's taken me hours to get it all apart. Pistons have got rust on them. But if you get in here regularly enough, we're not even a year old, this vehicle, and we're doing pads already. But for what it's towed and the work it's done, the desert, I mean, pretty happy with that. That's 30,000. Next move in this game of brake chess, we're off to Cartech Tyre and Auto in Roseland, Sydney. This is next level. What's it doing?
The pedal's just dropping on me by itself.
Oh, you're putting pressure on it?
Yeah, but it's doing it though.
So it's
Can you hear it?
Yeah, I can hear it.
Look, it just
So what does
pulled
it
the
feel
pedal
like?
up on me. It just pulled it right up.
Brian's mentioned in the past bleeding with a scan tool, which I could never get my head around.
Do not release the brake pedal until instructed. Perform each step to the above mentioned wheel. Yeah, go for it.
Now we still need somebody on the spanner, cracking the bleed nipples.
Shut it. Yeah. Don't crack the next one yet, Bart. Alright, go for it when you're ready. Alright, mate, got you on the tools at Cartech, mate. In its own way, it's pushing all the air to the bottom. So we can just crack it and get the air out the first time.
Do you ever think, why can't we just be normal? You know, like have the Tesla plugged in the front of the house, have the Kia wagon there to drive the kids around.
Oh, same neighbour. I was talking to the same neighbour about how I was getting a sleep in one morning and I didn't have to get up till 5:30. And she went, what even is that? Normal people get up at 7 o'clock.
The heat's better, eh?
Yeah, yes.
They just feel better.
Well, I've just got a toe on it.
Yeah.
It's climbing out of the rollers. Feels much better.
So that's only pads in the front. The disc stayed. Well, we got 30,000 Ks out of the pads. Front and rear, they both wore even.
Yeah, including desert crossing.
Desert crossing, towing. Yeah.
Lots of towing.
The back was the question last time. But a much smaller pad, much smaller caliper in the rear.
Much smaller caliper, much smaller pad, much less disc area. Which is silly in a ute, yeah, because even with no weight in it, we saw that it had 50-50 weight distribution. So, like a little truck, the back brake should be your primary circuit on something like this.
And no proportioning valve.
But it relies on the ABS for that, so in theory it's better because you get full pressure up until it slips. It's still a fair bit of pedal in that, but it's actually getting more force on it than the front wheel.
But you didn't have to override and stop it?
I didn't have to stop it, so it's broken traction rather than me having to tell it that's all it's got.
So maybe brake lines next?
That would certainly be my next, to firm that pedal up. There's so many on these with the ABS though.
So I'm going to end this episode saying that I think, my opinion, that this booster and the booster alone will suit probably 97% of people without having to do any other mods. Driving around town, on the highway, towing small trailers, it's perfect. I think I'm going to talk to Jason and potentially get the braided lines, and only for those times when the big downhill sections with the big weight on the back and you're on the brakes for a long time. That, in my opinion, and not having tested it, so it really is just an opinion. And time will tell on those odd occasions where we are towing for long distances downhill on the brakes all the time, whether or not the factory caliper and disc will run out of brakes again, but just maybe sooner because the booster is making it so much easier to reach full potential. But I hope you enjoyed this video. I think there's a quick fix to getting the brakes on the 70 series, you know, city proof, so to speak. Definitely. Coming up in the next episode, we'll find out what's going on here. And as always, thanks for watching.